This Week in Science and Education is presented in association with the Science Coordinators and Consultants Association of Ontario. Visit their website at sccao.ca.
This Week in Science and Education is brought to you in part by the University of Western Ontario, www.uwo.ca. We thank them for their support. This Week in Science and Education is also brought to you by Laurentian University. Check out Laurentian at laurentian.ca. We thank them for their support.
Hey everybody, it's time for This Week in Science and Education. This is episode 59, recorded Thursday, December 8th, 2011. Entrepreneurship and Science Education. Hey everybody, thanks for taking the time to join us today on This Week in Science and Education. We've got a fun show today. We're going to talk to Dr. David Bynum from, he's the Director of Center for Science and Mathematics Education. And that is, whereabouts is that, David? You're down in the United States somewhere, as I understand it.
Yeah, we're a little bit south of you all. We're on Long Island, which is east of New York City, and about an hour and a half east of Manhattan. So we're right here in the center of the action in the United States.
Super. And the university you're with is Stoney Brook University, as I understand it?
Right. It's one of the two flagship universities in the State University of New York system. It's a major research institution with about 25,000 students, and it's relatively new, which means that we're open to trying new things and building new programs. We have about 25,000 students, although the university was just started about 50 years ago.
And as I understand it, David, you're very familiar with my co-host, Dr. Thomas Merritt. Hi, Thomas. What's your connection with David?
I was at Stoney Brook University as a postdoc, and David, I don't know if I've got the time right, but it was about 2003. I had a fellowship. Yeah, is that right? I had a fellowship through LIGACE, with now the Center for Science and Mathematics Education, as a postdoc to do some teaching. So it was a really neat opportunity for me. Oftentimes when you postdoc, you spend the whole time just doing research. And John True is a faculty member there in the department where I was a postdoc. He and I guess, pitched this to David and said, we'd like to teach this course. It was a hands-on lab course. We take advantage of what we knew about genetics and Drosophila. And David funded me as a postdoc for that semester to teach the course. It was a great opportunity, really, really great opportunity for me.
And as I understand it, Thomas, you didn't come away empty-handed. You still have some material that belongs to David, is that right?
This is actually the LIGACE protein electrophoresis gel box in my hand. When I moved up here, I asked David if I could take it with me, and so far he hasn't gotten it back.
What can I say? It's still in good hands.
We use it, actually. Did you ever do the protein electrophoresis in my lab? For experimental biochem? Did it work?
He's saying what? What?
According to my grad student, that was, 2 years ago? Yeah. So we're still using it. At least that's what I told him to say.
Makes me think I should interview all of the rest of the people that you've worked with and see if there's some other things in your lab that maybe should be returned.
This is one of the more positive. So, we still miss Tom down here.
Well, David, why don't you give us an idea of what the Center for Science and Mathematics Education is all about?
Sure. Kind of quickly, we're interested in increasing the quality, quantity, and the diversity of the states, or the United States, but now increasingly it's internationally, of the science and mathematics talent pool. And we start out with programs at the university and high school level. Now we're really pre-K to postdoc. We started out just in biology, and now we're in all the sciences: biology, chemistry, physics, earth sciences, and mathematics. Especially of interest to people at K to 12, we bring students in here every day to work in our laboratories during the academic year, and during the summer we run summer programs, both residential, non-residential, in engineering, forensics, biotechnology, mathematics, to encourage students to advance their interest and skills in these areas. And we also educate teachers and offer master's degrees in teaching in all these areas to place teachers into the school. So we've grown from a small operation with a borrowed lab into a unit that has about 10,000 square feet, and we we're really kind of one-stop shopping for science and math education here on Long Island, and increasingly we're having students come from around the nation and internationally.
So just on that point, I sent an undergrad down, and one of the undergrads who worked with me spent a summer sponsored through LIGACE,
right.
he worked in the department where I'd been a postdoc. And it was a really great hands-on, first-hand experience for Adam to go down, work in a lab, work in somebody else's lab. And David, I don't know if you've kept up, he is now a PhD student at McMaster University and is on a full INSERC fellowship to support his PhD work. So he's done extremely well, and part of that success was getting the hands-on experience doing science, not just going into a classroom and hearing about it. But he did an undergraduate thesis with me, and then he had an opportunity to work with Mike Bell in the E&E, the Ecology and Evolution department there. So that hands-on kind of experience is a big deal to really get students a running start on their education.
That's exactly the kind of story we're trying to promote, and we love to hear, and we hear that. We often hear that story, and we're trying to move these areas of interest. What's missing here, and I think probably it's true in Canada, is also moving this hands-on, inquiry-based, asking questions activity into the elementary schools. And so we're starting to do a little bit of that, because I know when I got interested in science is when I was 6 or 7 years old and just got interested, just wanted to know what was going on. It's a perfect time. All kids are born scientists at this age, and so our activities have started out at the university level, but are working their way down into the earlier grades. So we just believe that we're really in the line of fight of the national and international need. We have tons of students who are interested. We get calls from parents and students every day, and I wouldn't trade working in this area for anything I've done in my life.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit about, sorry, Kevin, if I jumped in, tell us a little bit about bringing the students in. I remember the lab space that you had, but I wrote down my notes here. I said number of students, and you just told us, and I've already forgotten because my attention span is as wonderful as ever. How many students are you bringing through, and what are they actually getting the opportunity to do?
Well, we have, during the academic year, we have students, teachers will call in and register their students, bring a class to Stoney Brook to work in the labs for a half day. We have laboratory activities that are aligned with the New York State standards. In biology, they'll do things like bacterial transformation and various forms of recombinant DNA technology. In geosciences, we have a stream table that they'll work on. In physics, they determine the mass of an electron. So you bring them in here to do things that are really exciting, that they have to kind of figure out as they go, and that are very difficult for them to do in the schools. It turns out that we get it. Yeah, it turns out we get about 5,000 students a year who come in during the academic year. It's like during the spring, it's really like a cruise ship, because the labs are changing, the classes are changing, and the instructors are changing. But there's 125 school districts here on Long Island. The great majority of them send their students here during the academic year. And then the summer, we're more focused and have longer-term programs where they can come here and live and work and spend a month or so on campus or not, working in various projects in laboratories. So it's a year-round operation, and we really started from scratch. And this is why I talk about entrepreneurship, because the thing you have to do first is attract the funds and the interest to do this kind of thing. Without getting a grant or some kind of external funding, it's hard to get going. And so we've used entrepreneurial principles to write grants, raise the money to build these kind of programs, evaluate them, and and keep offering them and raising continual funds. So there's a lot more involved than just delivering the science. One has to build the infrastructure to keep it going and sustain it. And we think that the major research institutions that don't do this kind of thing in the next decade are going to be left out. We think it's a wave of the future to involve the community at the major research universities, and it's also a wave of the future to do it in education internationally. We want to know what people in Singapore are thinking and doing in education. We want to bring them here and eventually go there. So our goals are broad and rich. We're doing this we envision having a global network. In fact, it's in our 5-year plan in the next 5 years. So, we're not modest in what we're trying to do.
Wow. Never have been, David.
Thank you. I'm getting nervous here because people are putting on. There's another fire alarm going off, but I'm risking jail time, but I'll do it. So go ahead. Until they chase me out, I'll stay.
So for those of you that don't get that reference, David is joining us by audio today because the fire alarm has gone off in this building. So he's, he's running around campus or something using his phone to join us. But whatever it is, we're glad you're with us. David, we got to take a quick break here for a couple minutes and thank our sponsors, and we'll be right back with the show. When we come back, I want to ask you about how you're taking, this information and making it relevant for students in younger ages. That's one of the biggest challenges we have in taking these, scientific brains and asking them to talk to 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds. So I'm going to ask you what your strategies are for that as soon as we get back. Our special guest today is David Bynum, who's the director of the Center for Science and Mathematics Education. That's a tongue twister at Stoney Brook University, and we'll be right back after this break. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
This Week in Science and Education is brought to you by Sheridan Institute of Technology and Advanced Learning. At Sheridan, students shine brighter. Check out sheridanc.on.ca.
All right, so thanks everybody for sticking with us. Our special guest today is Dr. David Bynum from the Center for Science and Mathematics Education at Stoney Brook University. And David, right before the break, I wanted to ask you a question about how you're taking scientists and researchers, if you will, and having them talk to these younger grades. It gets more challenging, the younger, the target audience. Are there specific strategies that you've adopted, or any words of advice you can give people on how to, speak at a level that's relevant for them?
Well, I'll give you one example of something we've done that's really turned into success, but it didn't originate from the center. Actually, a teacher came to us. An elementary math specialist from the Port Jefferson School District called me up and said, our kids are really interested in math, and they're in 4th and 5th grade. But there's nothing more can we do anything more here with them? We'd like to have a competition or something. So we brought her out here. We talked together, decided to have we're in Suffolk County on Long Island, math competition among elementary schools, invited the schools, and lo and behold, we got a couple of hundred students from about 50 districts to come here and work in an elementary math competition. They did it. They worked individually and in teams in our Student Activity Center. One of the cool things about it, during the program, the chair of our own mathematics department was sitting in the back of the room and working out the problems as the young people did. So it was just a nice scene to see him there struggling and working along with the young people. Competition.
Did you check his answers?
I wouldn't have known if they were right or wrong anyway. But the young kids would have. They're extremely quick. They need to be challenged. We're not doing them justice with the things that we're offering. They're capable of so much more than what we're asking of them. And so we've used competitions at all levels, from elementary, middle, and high school. And they're team oriented. They're not killer, they're not the kind of things that people have to really sweat over, but people enjoy competing like that, and the young people especially. In the labs it has to be hands-on, and they have to figure out the next step by themselves. So we have gotten down now as low as the 5th and 6th grade. We've written a grant proposal to work at the lower grade levels, but at that level, anything that you do that's hands-on. We've done bridge building, robotics, whatever it is. You can do something that's unique to your own school district. Get them involved in the outdoors around your area. Anything that engages them in the natural world, asking questions they don't know the answer to, engaging their curiosity. How do you figure this out? Letting them know that you don't know everything, and that it's certainly permissible and fun to ask questions and try to get answers. You really need to challenge the students in a way that they will run with these kind of things, and they will.
Yeah. Thomas?
I'm listening and enjoying this, David. One thing, just a personal note, you might be happy to know I've got a group of high school kids coming in tomorrow to do a hands-on lab. One of the local high schools that I contacted after I moved up here about once or twice a year, they send a group of kids over. So we've got 30 kids coming over to do some genetics, and we'll play with the flies. Actually, a lot of the stuff that John and I did when we were teaching with ligase. And we'll just do, it's about a 2-hour program, and they get a little bit of hands-on experience, give them a little bit of taste of what's going on. One of the things that you mentioned was that, that how much your program has grown over the years, and part of that was using feedback to get an idea of what was working and what wasn't working. So this is one of the things that we've tried to figure out with this podcast. How do we work with the people that are listening to this to get an idea of what works and what doesn't work? So what worked for you? How did you get feedback that helped you develop the program that you have now?
Well, we've done a great, almost everything that we've initiated has been through writing external grants. I took a colleague down to Washington, Virginia last week, and we talked with the NIH and the NSF and the Howard Hughes people. Those are major granting agencies in the state. And you need to come up with concepts and ideas that you can find funding for. Once you find that, things get a lot easier because you can begin to sell your own administration and leadership on the benefit of these kind of things. So we try to build small successes, and I'm not really that concerned about what it is, but we very seldom ask for anything from scratch. We build a small success, or as big as we can, and then we try to continue to support that and get the support of the leadership. So a lot of this is old-fashioned communication and relationships. We build the programs. We have an external evaluator who will do focus groups, develop questionnaires, do pre- and post-testing, get the opinions of students and teachers, and then we publicize that, and we make it known. And if we want criticism, we want the best people in the country or from anywhere to come in and tell us what we can do better. So it's a matter of getting feedback from the users of your program and then making them better and letting everybody know that you're doing that. There's really not a mystery to it, but I think one of the uniqueness for us is the kind of having the entrepreneurial spirit. It's the education comes from a more compliance culture than an innovation and entrepreneurial culture, and realistically, a compliance culture does not attract innovative people, creative people, people who want to make new things. Education, in order to attract young people, needs to have that kind of resonance for young people, or to attract young people into doing things in education and research. And so we try to do that. That's immersed in everything we do. We raise money from the outside. We hire the best people we can. We let the community and the leadership know what we're doing. I'm at Washington and Albany and talking to our leaders all the time. I'm in the schools. And just by being kind of a full-court press on these kind of activities, it's amazing what you can do. I mean, we started out working in a barred lab with 28 community college students, and now we have about 10,000 square feet of lab space, and we've had 60 or 70,000 students come through our program. So, and you can do similar things up there in Canada. I did a little bit of reading on how you're organized, and I'm sure you're off to the races up there. So, what can I say? All it takes is one or two people to start.
Well, I'm not in charge of organization, I can assure you. One of the things that jumped out is what you were just mentioning. We've talked quite a bit about inquiry-based learning on this podcast, and there's a lot of push to bring that into the Canadian system. And I was at a workshop here a couple of weeks ago where Mike Newman, how do you pronounce Mike's last name?
That's right, Newman.
Okay. We had interviewed him, and then he was up in Sudbury, and I think one of the best things that I heard him say to the high school kids here, the high school teachers, was convincing the teachers to convince the kids that it's okay to fail, and not fail the course, but to actually try something and have it not work, and then try it again. And we end up we've created students that don't want to try things; they want to get it right the first time because they don't want something not to work.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, if and it's a bit of a cultural change, because if they're not failing sometimes, they're really not taking enough of a challenge and risk. And so it's going in the wrong direction rather than the right one. So we encourage that. I say fail. Carelessness is not accepted. Failure, is fine. And so as long as people are giving it a shot, and so it needs to be encouraged. And we encourage. Not only that, we encourage it here in our group here has grown up to 13 people. I think we've written 13 or 14 grants recently. We've only gotten 3 of them.
Right.
We're like a major league hitter. We don't hit it out of the park hardly at all. But you don't have to. You got to stay in the game and keep working at it. And even by those kind of success efforts, we've raised over $20 million in external funding. So you just have to keep. We're pretty hard to beat because we stay at it, and we stay after the granting agencies. We keep a presence in the schools. I'm meeting with our leadership next week about getting more resources. So it's just a full court press on the things that are important and that you really care about.
What a great point, and you got to keep hitting the singles, and every once in a while the home run comes along. But, the other point that you guys were talking about in terms of being willing to fail, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, and I don't know any of them that haven't failed, and that really ties in as well. I mean, you have to fail in order to know, you recognize your successes and you appreciate them a lot more as well. Anyways, we're out of time, gentlemen. I apologize. It's been a wonderful discussion, but we've got to wrap it up. Our special guest today has been Dr. David Bynum from the Center for Science and Mathematics Education. That's at Stoney Brook University. And David, thank you so much for coming on the show. And Thomas, thanks for hooking us up with David. This has been a great chat. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, David, thank you very much.
Take care.
That wraps up another episode of This Week in Science and Education. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. On behalf of Dr. Thomas Merritt up at Merritt University, this is Kevin Cougler signing off until next week. Take care, everybody.